Lecornu walked into Netanyahu's office, confident. He left knowing France had been played for 3 years. But what you're about to discover isn't just about one meeting. It's about the most sophisticated intelligence deception in modern history, and how one document changed everything Europe thought it knew about their ally. Picture this. March 15, 2024. Sébastien Lecornu, France's defense minister, steps out of his armored vehicle in Tel Aviv. He's carrying a briefcase containing what he believes will be the final piece of a groundbreaking defense cooperation agreement. 3 years of negotiations, billions in weapons deals. The future of European-Israeli relations hanging in the balance. But there's something Lecornu doesn't know yet. Something that will make him question every handshake, every smile, every promise Netanyahu has made over the past 3 years. And trust me, when you find out what was really happening behind those closed doors, you'll understand why this story has been classified at the highest levels of NATO intelligence. The elevator ride to Netanyahu's office takes exactly 47 seconds. In those 47 seconds, Lecornu reviews his talking points one final time. He's about to secure France's position as Israel's primary European military partner. At least, that's what he thinks. What he doesn't realize is that every word he's about to speak has already been anticipated, analyzed, and prepared for by one of the most cunning political minds of our generation. The doors open. Netanyahu stands there with that trademark smile, the one that has charmed world leaders for decades, the same smile that has hidden some of the darkest political calculations in modern diplomacy. "Sébastien, my friend," he says, extending his hand. "Ready to make history? But wait, before I tell you what happened in that room, you need to understand how we got here. Because this story doesn't start with that handshake. It starts 3 years earlier, with a phone call that would set in motion the most elaborate intelligence operation Europe has ever fallen victim to. The real story begins in September 2021. Netanyahu, still smarting from his temporary loss of power, receives a call from his old friend in Mossad. "Bibi," the voice says, "we have a problem, and an opportunity. The problem? European weapons sales to Israel are becoming increasingly difficult to secure, due to political pressure. The opportunity? France's new defense minister is ambitious, inexperienced and desperate to prove himself on the international stage. Tell me more," Netanyahu responds, and in that moment, Operation Mirage is born. You've never heard of Operation Mirage because it doesn't officially exist, but what I'm about to tell you will explain why French weapons ended up in places they were never supposed to be, how Israeli intelligence played the long game better than anyone imagined, and why what happened in that office in March 2024 sent shockwaves through every intelligence agency in the Western world. But here's where it gets really interesting, because Netanyahu wasn't just playing France. He was playing the entire European Union, and Lecornu was about to become the unwitting centerpiece of the most audacious intelligence coup in decades. Let me take you back to that first meeting between Netanyahu and Lecornu in Paris, October 2021. Picture a grand room in the Hôtel de Brienne, France's defense ministry. Lecornu, newly appointed and eager to establish his credentials, has arranged this meeting to discuss enhanced military cooperation. He sees an opportunity to position France as Israel's primary European partner, especially with Germany becoming increasingly reluctant to supply weapons to the region. Netanyahu arrives with a small delegation, but there's one person who catches Lecornu's attention, a quiet woman introduced only as Dr. Sarah Chen, supposedly an academic consultant on Middle Eastern affairs. What Lecornu doesn't know is that Dr. Chen is actually Colonel Sarah Rosen, one of Mossad's most skilled psychological operations specialists. Her job? To study Lecornu's personality, his weaknesses, his ambitions and his pressure points. During that first meeting, something interesting happens. Netanyahu seems almost reluctant. He expresses concerns about European politics, about public opinion, about the complications of working too closely with France. It's masterful theater. By appearing hesitant, he makes Lecornu work harder to convince him. And with every argument Lecornu makes, with every assurance he provides, he's unknowingly revealing exactly how France plans to navigate the political complexities of arms sales to Israel. "We understand the sensitivities," Lecornu assures Netanyahu, "but France is committed to Israel's security. We have mechanisms in place to ensure smooth cooperation, regardless of political pressures." He's trying to close the deal, but he's actually providing the intelligence roadmap that will guide Netanyahu's strategy for the next 3 years. But the real masterstroke comes at the end of that meeting. Netanyahu, still playing reluctant, says, "I need to think about this. Perhaps we could start small, some intelligence sharing, build trust gradually." Lecornu, eager to show progress, immediately agrees, and just like that, he opens the door to the most sophisticated intelligence operation of his career, one where he's the target, not the partner. Now, here's something that will blow your mind. Remember how I mentioned that Netanyahu seemed to be in a weakened position in 2021? That was part of the act. Even when he wasn't officially prime minister, his network was intact, his intelligence contacts remained loyal, and his strategic thinking never wavered. In fact, being out of office gave him something even more valuable: plausible deniability. Over the following months, the intelligence sharing begins. France starts providing Israel with detailed assessments of regional threats, advanced satellite imagery, and even some of their most sensitive human intelligence reports from across the Middle East. In return, Israel provides what appears to be equally valuable intelligence. But here's the kicker. Much of what Israel is sharing is either outdated, deliberately misleading, or information they know France already possesses through other channels. It's during this intelligence exchange that Operation Mirage really takes shape. Every piece of information France shares is being analyzed, not for its operational value, but for what it reveals about French intelligence capabilities, methods, and most importantly, limitations. Netanyahu's team is building a comprehensive picture of how France gathers, analyzes, and acts on intelligence. It's like being given the blueprint to your opponent's entire strategy. But the truly diabolical part? Israel starts feeding France intelligence that subtly influences their regional assessments. Nothing dramatic, just small adjustments that gradually shift how France perceives various threats and opportunities in the Middle East. It's psychological manipulation on a geopolitical scale, and Lecornu has no idea he's being played. By mid-2022, Netanyahu is back in power, and the operation enters its next phase. The intelligence relationship has built trust, and now it's time to leverage that trust into something much more valuable: advanced weapon systems. But getting these weapons isn't enough for Netanyahu. He needs them without oversight, without restrictions, and without France understanding how they'll actually be used. This is where Dr. Chen, Colonel Rosen, proves her worth. Over months of interactions with Lecornu and his team, she's identified exactly what each key French official wants to hear. Lecornu wants to be seen as a strategic thinker. His deputy is obsessed with technological superiority. The intelligence liaison cares most about maintaining access to Israeli sources. One by one, they're all being fed the exact narratives that will make them advocates for deeper cooperation. The breakthrough comes in January 2023. Israel shares intelligence about an imminent terrorist attack on French interests in the region. The intelligence is real, mostly, but what France doesn't know is that Israel has been tracking this threat for months and could have prevented it at any time. Instead, they've timed the revelation perfectly to coincide with their weapons request. "We need your Rafale jets," Netanyahu tells Lecornu during an urgent call. "Not just for this threat, but for the capability to prevent future attacks on French citizens and interests." The emotional manipulation is surgical in its precision. How can Lecornu say no to protecting French lives? But here's what really happened behind the scenes. That terrorist threat? Israel didn't just discover it, they had been carefully allowing it to develop while maintaining the ability to stop it at any moment. When they finally acted, using French-supplied weapons and intelligence, they didn't just neutralize the immediate threat. They eliminated an entire network that had been providing valuable intelligence about Iran's operations in the region. In other words, Israel used French weapons to destroy their own intelligence asset, deliberately blinding France to Iranian activities that Israel wanted to handle exclusively. It was a masterpiece of strategic deception, and Lecornu never saw it coming. By late 2023, the weapons shipments are flowing freely. Advanced air-to-air missiles, precision-guided bombs, electronic warfare systems, some of the most sophisticated military technology France produces. And thanks to the modified oversight agreements that Netanyahu's team has carefully negotiated, much of this equipment operates under looser restrictions than standard arms sales would normally allow. But Netanyahu isn't content with just getting the weapons. He's using them in ways that actively undermine French interests in the region, And he's doing it so skillfully that France actually ends up providing intelligence support for operations that damage their own strategic position. The perfect example comes in November 2023. Israel launches what appears to be a straightforward counterterrorism operation in Lebanon. They request French satellite intelligence to support the mission, and Lecornu's team provides it immediately. After all, counterterrorism cooperation is exactly what their partnership is supposed to accomplish. What France doesn't realize is that this counterterrorism operation is actually targeting a network of Lebanese contacts who have been providing France with some of their best intelligence about Hezbollah's political operations. These aren't terrorists in any meaningful sense. They're political operators, journalists, and business people who happen to have insights into Hezbollah's decision-making processes. Israel eliminates this network using French weapons and French intelligence, effectively blinding France to political developments in Lebanon while strengthening Israel's own intelligence monopoly in the region. And the beautiful part from Netanyahu's perspective is that France actually provides logistical support for the operation that damages their own interests. But this is just the beginning. Throughout 2023 and early 2024, this pattern repeats across the Middle East. Syria, Jordan, Egypt, the Gulf states. Everywhere France has intelligence interests. Israel systematically eliminates French assets while maintaining the pretense of cooperation. It's intelligence warfare disguised as alliance building. The psychological aspects of the operation are equally sophisticated. Netanyahu's team has identified that Lecornu's greatest weakness is his need to be seen as a strategic visionary who can navigate complex international relationships. So they feed his ego while stealing his lunch. Every meeting includes moments where Netanyahu appears to seek Lecornu's counsel on regional strategy, making the French minister feel like a trusted advisor rather than a target. "What do you think, Sébastien?" Netanyahu asks during one particularly memorable conversation about Iran policy. "Your analysis of the European perspective is always so insightful." Lecornu beams with pride and proceeds to outline France's entire regional strategy, complete with operational details and intelligence sources. He thinks he's building a partnership. He's actually providing the roadmap for his own strategic defeat. Meanwhile, Colonel Rosen continues her psychological assessment, now focused on understanding how far France can be pushed before they begin asking uncomfortable questions. Her reports back to Netanyahu are masterpieces of behavioral analysis, predicting with uncanny accuracy how Lecornu will react to various scenarios and what arguments will be most effective in maintaining his compliance. By February 2024, Operation Mirage has achieved something unprecedented in modern intelligence history. Israel has completely inverted their relationship with France. Instead of being the junior partner seeking weapons and support, they've become the dominant partner manipulating France's regional strategy while using French resources to advance Israeli interests at French expense. But every operation has its risks, and Netanyahu's team knows they're walking a tightrope. The more successful they become, the greater the chance that someone in French intelligence will notice the pattern. Which brings us to the one variable that nearly derails everything. A young analyst in the DGSE, named Marie Dubois. Marie is exactly the kind of person intelligence operations fear most: brilliant, observant, and completely incorruptible. She's been tracking various French intelligence failures in the Middle East and begins to notice a disturbing pattern. Every major setback seems to coincide with periods of increased cooperation with Israel. It's not obvious. The connections are subtle and could easily be coincidental. But Marie has the kind of mind that doesn't believe in coincidences. In January 2024, she submits a preliminary report suggesting that France's intelligence partnerships might need review. The report doesn't explicitly accuse Israel of deception, but it asks some very uncomfortable questions about operational security and information sharing protocols. If this report gains traction, it could trigger exactly the kind of investigation that would expose Operation Mirage. Netanyahu's team becomes aware of the report through their sources in French intelligence. Because of course they have sources in French intelligence. This is the crisis moment that will either make or break 3 years of careful planning. How do they handle a threat they can't eliminate without confirming the very suspicions they're trying to suppress? The solution is characteristically audacious. Instead of trying to suppress Marie's investigation, they decide to use it. They feed her additional information that seems to support her suspicions, but they point her in the wrong direction. They make it appear that the real problem is German intelligence sharing with France, not Israeli intelligence sharing. It's misdirection on a counterintelligence level, and it works perfectly. Marie's final report, submitted in February 2024, recommends a complete review of France's intelligence sharing arrangements with Germany. The Israeli connection is mentioned only in passing, with a note that cooperation with Israel has been generally productive and should be expanded. Netanyahu's team has turned their biggest threat into their strongest advocate. Which brings us back to that elevator ride in March 2024. Lecornu enters Netanyahu's office, thinking he's concluding a successful 3-year partnership that has enhanced France's regional influence and strategic capabilities. He has no idea that he's about to walk into the most devastating intelligence briefing of his career. Before we finalize our new agreements, Netanyahu says, settling into his chair with that famous smile, "I thought you might appreciate a comprehensive overview of what our cooperation has accomplished." He nods to an aide, who places a thick folder on the table between them. After all, accountability is so important in partnerships like ours. Lecornu opens the folder, expecting to see the usual diplomatic summary of joint operations and shared successes. Instead, he finds something that makes his blood run cold. It's a detailed timeline of Operation Mirage, complete with psychological profiles of French officials, analysis of French intelligence methods, and most damning of all, a comprehensive list of French intelligence assets that have been compromised or eliminated through Israeli operations. The document is clinical in its precision. It outlines exactly how Israel has manipulated French intelligence sharing, how they've used French weapons against French interests, and how they've systematically eliminated France's regional intelligence network, while maintaining the pretense of cooperation. It's 3 years of strategic deception laid out in bureaucratic detail. But the most devastating section comes at the end. It's titled Assessment of French Strategic Capabilities, and it reads like an autopsy of French intelligence operations in the Middle East. Every weakness has been identified, every vulnerability exploited, every operational method compromised. It's not just a record of what Israel has done, it's a blueprint for everything they could do to France if they chose to. Lecornu's hands begin to shake as he reads. This isn't just intelligence failure, it's strategic catastrophe. France hasn't just been outmaneuvered, they've been systematically dissected and rendered strategically impotent in one of the world's most important regions. And they paid for the privilege with advanced weapons and classified intelligence. "I don't understand," Lecornu manages to say, though even as the words leave his mouth, he knows he understands perfectly. "Why are you showing me this?" Netanyahu's smile never wavers. "Because, my friend, true partnership requires honesty. And I want you to understand exactly what kind of partnership you've been part of for the past 3 years. The psychological impact is devastating." Lecornu realizes that every success he thought he'd achieved has been an illusion. Every moment of pride in the Franco-Israeli relationship has been based on his own manipulation. He's not been building a partnership, he's been facilitating his own country's strategic defeat. But Netanyahu isn't finished. "Of course," he continues, "this level of cooperation has been mutually beneficial. We've accomplished so much together. It would be unfortunate if political considerations forced us to reconsider our approach to information sharing. The threat is implicit but unmistakable. Israel now possesses comprehensive intelligence about French operations, methods, and vulnerabilities. They could share this information with France's competitors, sell it to hostile intelligence services, or simply use it to undermine French operations worldwide. The relationship hasn't just been unequal. It's created a permanent strategic vulnerability that Israel can exploit whenever convenient." Lecornu closes the folder with hands that won't stop trembling. He understands now why Netanyahu arranged this meeting, why he chose this moment for the revelation. France is about to sign new defense agreements that will deepen their cooperation even further. Netanyahu wants Lecornu to know that he's not entering a partnership, he's formalizing his country's subordination. "What do you want?" Lecornu asks, though he suspects he already knows the answer. "Exactly what we've always wanted," Netanyahu replies. "Continued cooperation, enhanced information sharing, expanded access to advanced weapons systems. The only difference is that now you understand the true nature of our relationship." The meeting continues for another hour, but the outcome was determined the moment Lecornu opened that folder. France will sign the new agreements, because they have no choice. The alternative, having 3 years of strategic deception exposed publicly, would be even more damaging than continued cooperation under these humiliating terms. As Lecornu leaves the building, He understands that he's not just been outmaneuvered by Netanyahu personally, he's been systematically defeated by an intelligence operation that turned every French strength into a vulnerability, every success into a failure, every partnership initiative into a tool of his own strategic subordination. The elevator ride down takes exactly 47 seconds. The same amount of time it took on the way up, but now those 47 seconds feel like a descent into a completely different world. A world where France's most trusted Middle Eastern ally has been playing a 3-year game of strategic chess, while France didn't even realize they were on the board. But here's the final twist that even Netanyahu didn't fully anticipate. As devastating as Operation Mirage has been for France, it's also created something unintended. A perfect case study in modern intelligence warfare that other nations are already beginning to analyze and adapt. China, Russia, Iran, they're all studying Netanyahu's methodology, learning from his techniques, and preparing to apply similar approaches to their own strategic rivals. In trying to secure Israel's regional dominance, Netanyahu may have inadvertently created the blueprint for the next generation of intelligence warfare. And that's a development that could ultimately threaten not just France, but every nation that relies on traditional diplomatic relationships and intelligence partnerships. The story of Operation Mirage isn't just about what happened between Israel and France. It's a preview of how international relations might evolve in an era where intelligence capabilities make traditional diplomacy not just obsolete, but potentially suicidal for anyone who fails to understand the new rules of the game. And as for Lecornu, he submitted his resignation 6 months later, citing personal reasons. But those who know the real story understand that his political career ended the moment he opened that folder in Netanyahu's office. He'd been played by a master, and the game was over long before he realized it had begun.